My friend paints. Not as a job. She has a real job. The kind with spreadsheets and deadlines and a boss who says, "Circle back," unironically. But at night, in a room she doesn't show anyone, she makes things that would stop you in a gallery. I've seen them. They're not good. They're alive. She's been doing this for 6 years. 0 Instagram posts, 0 submissions to shows, 0 people who know this part of her exists except me, and I only know because I walked in unannounced once. I asked her why. Not demanding, just curious. She said, "If I put them out there and nobody cares, then I have to know. Right now, I don't have to know." That sentence sat with me for months, because it's not about fear of failure. Not really. Failure is clean. You try, you fall, you get up. The thing she's afraid of is something quieter, something that doesn't have a name in everyday conversation. She's afraid of being seen and still not mattering. That's different. That's worse. Because if you hide, you get to keep the story. The story that you could have been something if you'd tried. The story that the world just never got to see what you had. The story that your potential is still intact, still pure, still possible. The moment you show up, that story dies. And what replaces it is reality, which might be indifference, or lukewarm praise, or worse, the slow, grinding realization that you're good, maybe even very good, but good isn't enough. That there's a difference between having something to say and having people who want to hear it. So you stay hidden. Not because you're lazy, not because you're scared of hard work. You stay hidden because hidden is the last place where your potential stays perfect. I think about this whenever I see someone quietly brilliant. The person at the party who says almost nothing, but when they do, everyone goes quiet. The colleague who solves problems in ways that seem obvious after they explain it, but impossible before. The friend who writes paragraphs in texts that make you stop walking. They all have something in common. They're not invisible because they lack ability. They're invisible because visibility costs something they haven't figured out how to pay. Psychologists sometimes call this self-handicapping, but that sounds like a strategy, like something you choose at a conscious level. Most people don't choose this. They just find themselves, year after year, not doing the thing, not sending the email, not posting the work, not raising their hand. And they tell themselves stories about timing, about preparation, about waiting for the right moment. But the right moment is a myth we tell ourselves to stay safe. I knew someone in college. Let's call him Marcus. Marcus was the person everyone assumed would do something extraordinary. Not because he said so, because he was quiet in a way that felt like depth. He listened more than he talked. He asked questions that cut to the bone. Professors loved him. Students orbited him, hoping some of whatever he had would rub off. Last I heard, he manages a warehouse. Not a small one, not a failing one, just a warehouse. He makes enough. He goes home. He watches shows. He is, by every external measure, fine. I don't think he's unhappy. I think he made a choice. Or, more accurately, I think he never made the choice to not be hidden. He just kept waiting until waiting became his life. And here's what I keep coming back to. Marcus wasn't afraid of failing. He was afraid of discovering that his best wasn't enough. That the depth everyone sensed in him would turn out to be just quietness. That the potential was mostly projection. That he was, in the end, ordinary. Ordinary is the real terror, not failure. Failure is dramatic. Ordinary is the slow drip of a life that never quite became what it hinted at. So how do you know if you're doing this? if you're choosing hidden because it keeps your story alive. You don't count the opportunities you took. You count the ones you let expire. The application you never submitted. The conversation you walked away from. The moment you could have said, "I made this," and said, "It's nothing," instead. You notice the relief when things don't work out. The canceled audition. The rejected proposal you never sent. The "I wasn't really trying anyway," you tell yourself after. You feel more like yourself in private than in public. Not because you're an introvert, because public is where the story gets tested, and private is where it stays safe. While Marcus was being fine, something else was happening. The world wasn't missing him. It doesn't work that way. The world doesn't hold space for potential. It only responds to what shows up. And Marcus, by not showing up, became invisible in the way that doesn't hurt. The way that feels like peace, but is actually just absence. And here's the part that hit me. I do this too. Not with everything, but with the things that matter most. The things where being seen and not mattering would actually wound me. I write drafts I don't publish. I have ideas I don't pursue. I tell myself I'm being careful, being strategic, waiting for the right time. But I'm not waiting. I'm preserving the possibility that I could be great without having to find out if I'm not. There's a difference between humility and hiding. Humility is knowing you have more to learn. Hiding is knowing you have something to offer and refusing to find out if that's true. And "I'm not ready yet" can sound a lot like "I'm not willing to be ordinary." So here's what I think. Potential isn't a promise, it's a question. And the only way to answer it is to stop protecting it. Not with a grand reveal, not with a viral moment, just with the small, terrifying act of showing one thing to one person. Of letting the story die so something real can start. Because the hidden life feels safe. But safety is just the absence of risk. And risk is the only place where potential becomes anything at all. There's a line I love. The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. But nobody tells you the real cave is just the moment before you let someone see what you've made. The breath before you say, "I did this." The silence after you send it and can't take it back. That moment is the cave. And most people spend their whole lives standing at the entrance, telling themselves they're just preparing to go in. So ask yourself one honest question. What are you keeping perfect by keeping it hidden? Not what are you working on, not what you're getting ready for. What are you protecting from the world? Because as long as it's hidden, it stays possible. Because possible isn't a life. It's a postponement. And the world doesn't need your potential. It needs you. Messy, visible, maybe ordinary, maybe not. But here. Stay curious. Curious human. Now you know.